Welcome to the Creation Innovation Podcast. I'm your host, Elizabeth King. Together, we'll have conversations with incredible human beings who have taken their creative outlet and turned it into something innovative. From people leaving the corporate world to be 8-figure entrepreneurs to people who have created books, created a family, or just creating to have fun in the world. We are all in a journey to create something amazing in our lives, and I hope that you find some inspiration of your own here. This is the Creation Innovation Podcast. Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. I am super excited today to speak to Alejandra Brady about Feng Shui. And some of you know, some of you may not know, I follow astrology super religiously, so to speak, Vastu specifically. So there's a difference between like Western astrology and Eastern, versus which would be from India. And I didn't know the difference 15 years ago when I started, but what I have learned so far is that there's also different variations of Feng Shui. And I first did Feng Shui exactly 20 years ago in my first home that I bought, and continue to do so in all the homes that I live in now. And so people often wonder, like, why is that wall green right there? Or why is that wall pink or whatever? And there's always a rhyme and a reason for what is happening in my home around energy. And so I'm so excited to talk to Alejandra today. Thank you for being here. She is a Feng Shui expert, and we're going to talk about a lot of things, but also how that might relate to your fertility and what we can go do and tips around that to kind of help kind of solidify that and make that a specific intention. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here, and happy weekend almost for when we're recording.
Yes, I know. I'm actually really looking forward to the weekend. Yes. So tell us a little bit how you got into Feng Shui. It's such kind of, I don't want to say random niche, but for somebody who, is you look like very American, if who's watching this, it's not what we think about. Oh, I'm going to grow up and be a Feng Shui expert.
Right. Well, what's really funny is actually my first language is Spanish, and I was raised on the border with Mexico. So, I'm not even really American. I mean, I am, but I relate to my culture as very Mexican American. So add that to the mix. And the fact that Feng Shui found me is kind of wild. So a synopsis of how it happened. When I turned 50, I suddenly had to have I had to have fusion on my neck, which came out of nowhere. It was a surprise. And we're all, very astonished at this situation. And it made me slow down and stop. I have been an interior designer for almost 20 years. So I did have that aspect to it already, aesthetics and how things flow and things of that nature. But I never worked with Feng Shui before. I don't even want to pretend that I did. I didn't. But, design has its own feel and flow. So as I was preparing to go into this surgery, I was actually working on a house of a client of mine who was more into energy and Feng Shui. And she said, hey, listen, I found a Feng Shui practitioner who will come to my house. Will you come so that you can implement, what she suggests? And then she'll do your house too, if you want to, before your surgery, and she won't charge us travel time.
So amazing. Yes, please.
I know, right? Yes. So she's coming from Naples, which is about 3.5 hours from here. And her name is Karen Rock Carter, and she ended up being my teacher. So I always want to give her credit. So she gets to my house. We're walking around. Within 10 minutes, she stops and she looks at me and she goes, you're going to be doing this. And to this day, I remember my response, TikTok lady, like, you're still expensive. Like, just tell me what I need to do to get through my surgery and recover, and let's go. I have no interest in doing this.
Right.
But she left. I implemented what she said. I finished right before my surgery for my master bedroom. That's where I wanted to start, because that's where I would be healing and in a neck brace for, 6 to 8 weeks where you really can't move around very much. So I wanted a very peaceful space. And it was already beautiful because I can make it beautiful, but I knew that it could be better, especially for health reasons. Right. So I did it. It changed everything. And my husband went from literally crossing his arms when she was at the house and looking at me like, great, now you figured out another way to redo stuff,
Right.
To what, right. Because this is what I do. So he's like, well, you couldn't figure out one way. So now you brought in a different reason. So the change was so drastic that when I recovered, I reached back out to her and I said, hey, you remember me? You said I'd be doing this. Would you be willing to be my teacher? And she said yes. And my husband was 100% in. And I took the next year off, closed my design business, and just studied under her and got my certification and started doing it.
Amazing.
So, yeah, and that was almost 6 years ago. So that's a newer modality to my toolbox.
Fantastic. Good for you. And I love the
Thank you.
fact that so many people feel like they're pigeonholed into whatever it is that they've been doing, right? So you
Right.
said you were doing design for many years. How did that feel to kind of make that shift? Because a lot of people have that nudge of like, oh, that actually is pretty cool. Maybe I
Right.
should, but I'm 50 years old or I'm whatever it is that we tell ourselves, right? To
Right.
not make that shift. How was it just because maybe she planted that seed of like psychically you're going to be doing this that kind of pushed you over the edge? Or what was it for you that was like, no, it's okay for me to be doing this?
I think when I saw the changes in my own house, I wanted to do that for my clients too. I knew that having that knowledge, I could still make everything aesthetically beautiful because I am not the Feng Shui practitioner that, unless it's an emergency or it's a have to, or the client wants to, I'm not going to randomly hang the crystal ball from a red string in the middle of your hallway unless it's necessary, right? But I try and do it aesthetically through design. And it just felt like a really natural marriage. And I literally was 50, and just, said, okay, let's try this. And then that I call Feng Shui my gateway drug, because then that led to me being curious about meditation and other spiritual things that I was
Right.
not curious about before. And so
Right.
I started meditating and saying, okay, how do I put this all together? What is my purpose? Our son had graduated from college. He was grown and flown. And I got told to write a book. And I'm like, yeah, no, thank you. Just like I told her, no, thank you. And here we are with a best-selling book, 4 years later. It's just, so now I've learned that when I get these nudges, that when these messages come to me, now I just follow them through instead of fighting them, because you're getting those messages for a reason. If you're feeling stuck, but you're thinking that you need to pivot, it probably means you need to pivot.
Absolutely. So great segue to the book. Tell us a
Oh,
little bit
sure.
about that before we.
So the book is about my spiritual journey. So it is about and we talked just a minute briefly before, while we were off camera, about my struggle with infertility. I lost 4 of my 5 pregnancies, and we had our son, who is amazing. And I feel he has ended up being an only for a very specific reason. And it's great. And now he's getting married. So I finally have my girl 28 years later.
Congratulations.
Thank you. He gets mad at me because now I buy more stuff for her than him. And I'm like, hey, you brought a girl home. I don't know what you want from me.
I've been waiting a long time.
I've been waiting a long time to go shoe shopping.
Right, right.
So, I struggled with that and just general overall life, but then it does jump to a little bit of what we talked about and my spiritual journey and how I took that information that was given to me by God, universe, spirit, whatever you call your higher power, and have just made a complete shift in the direction that I'm going. And so the book is all about helping other people, because I will say I felt super alone, especially at the beginning of this journey. I felt like I was losing friends left and right because I'd be so excited about Feng Shui or so excited about meditation. And I'd want to talk to my friends of 30 years plus, and it wasn't their jam. And,
Right.
That's totally fine. It just took a minute to understand that. And then as you're losing.
On the flip side, though, when you do find the people that like want to geek out on it with you, you're like,
yeah.
oh my God. And did you see this? And have you seen that? And did you hear about,
Right.
whatever it is, the new feng crystal or whatever, right?
Well, a big part of it was surrendering to the fact that things were going to change. You cannot stay in the same place and want a different life. And, it has to change and things have to change. Even my husband was so sweet, but it was even challenging for him. At that point, we'd been married about 27 years or so, because we've been married 33 now. And I'd come home from, what did I do one time that was just amazing? And the conversation was, oh, a past life regression. I did my first past life regression. And I came home and I was telling them all this stuff. And the bottom line was, use my voice, use my, throat chakra, share my story, share my message. But when I told him how I got there, and I talk about the story in the book because I don't want to take up all the time with that. When I got there, he looked at me and he goes, but you're not going to tell anybody this, right? They're going to think you're crazy. It's like, they just told me to use my voice,
Right.
And so even people who are well-meaning in your life don't always get it. And it's a lot to get when you're having a spiritual journey, so hopefully my book is for those who are going through that and can maybe help them feel not so alone, and will help them see that in the end, your tribe will show up.
Yes, and I think that collectively as humans, we're becoming more conscious, and those stories
Absolutely.
are becoming more and more day to day. My
Right.
husband too, he's East Coast,
So is mine.
would not ever think to be into all of these things. But when
Right.
we were together, I'm like, okay, well, I need to talk to the astrologer. What's the right day for us to get married? When are we having kids? Like, what's happening? All of these things. And of course, at first, I think he probably did think I was crazy. But then he saw how, like for you with the Feng Shui, how it all aligned.
Right.
Oh my gosh, this actually really is. It's a math equation. It's not somebody making something up, right? It's based on the time, date, and location of your birth, period, end of story. And somebody's just translating that for you for the best of the outcome that's given. Right. So you would never think in a million years that this guy would be on board with it. And he totally is now. And it's so not that he's like actively seeking it out, but he's, tell me more. What do you want to, what should we do? What do we need to talk about this, or is that the right day or right time? I'm like, I love that you're even asking that question, So I do think that, things are shifting a bit more, even with people that we feel would never be open to that are getting there, which I think is a beautiful thing. And hopefully the younger generation will just continue to be more and more open to all of those things. But it is a big shift when you're first taking that step to, I remember the first book I read was Many Live, Many Masters by Brian Weiss. Yes. And I've given that book to probably 50 people over a period of time to read, because I do think it really marries the scientific aspect of things, because this man is a MD who then goes into doing past life regressions and realizing how, your husband may have been your daughter in a past life or whatever, kind of makes sense of some of this craziness in our lives. And I think that it really does help people to understand that you can live in a world where it's both, right? Mm-hmm. I love black and white and being very data driven, but again, I always talk about spirit babies and all other kinds of things. I have crystals, I have Feng Shui and Vastu and all the things, right? But I also am very the other direction, and you can live happily in both spaces, right? I agree. I think people don't figure you have to be hippy dippy living on a commune if you're going to be like into a spiritual life. And that is totally not true, So
I completely agree with that. And I just did past life regression with him. He was here for Hay House. And so I went and I did a whole day workshop with him.
Oh my God. Was it amazing?
It was. He was amazing. Yes. We were there from 10 to 5 with him, this workshop group.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I want to ask you all the things offline. I don't want to waste anybody's time, but okay. Yeah. So back to Feng Shui and just generally, what are some kind of general tips that people can do today in their home to kind of shift things around a little bit?
So I will first preface it by saying, and I'm a Virgo, by the way. So I am very grounded in this life too. And I need all my little things and organization and all those things. So yes. And we lived in Sedona for multiple years. So I've seen both sides. I've seen the, flying high at all times and the being grounded. So yes, I kind of like to balance it out and live somewhere in the middle. Yes. Yeah. So the type of Feng Shui that I practice is BTB. So it is a more Western Feng Shui, just to make that clear, because sometimes people get very confused and I get DMs. all the time in my inbox, on Instagram that are saying, well, you said this and this other person said this. And I'm like, you need to look into the different types of schools of Feng Shui. There's three main ones, and see what resonates with you. And then make sure that the people that you're following all are of that same type of school of Feng Shui, because otherwise you can end up quite confused.
Correct.
So I just want to make that clear that mine is BTB. So as people are listening, if they're curious or they resonate with it, they can go look it up and see what it is and see, more about it. So we work with the Bagua map. Are you familiar with that?
I am, but I'm assuming that most people probably are not.
Okay. So the Bagua map is a tool, and you can always get a free one to work with on my website. So if you put that in your show notes, people can just go into the website and get a free Bagua map. They can just download it so that they'll have one. We line up the front door with the lower area of the Bagua right here, which is like the career area. So it looks like a tic-tac-toe board is what the Bagua looks like. And it represents the 9 areas that are the main areas of anyone's life. So there's career, there's children and creativity, there's health, there's wealth, there's fame and reputation, which is how you are seen in the world in business, not necessarily just being famous. There's love and relationships, family, skills and knowledge, and travel and helpful people. So it breaks down into the 9 areas of a tic-tac-toe board. So if you stand, I'm going to do my best to explain it because I know people are not visually seeing this. If you stand at the entrance to your home, at the front door, if you open your front door and stand there and visualize your house in a tic-tac-toe board. And so to the immediate right will be helpful people and travel. Right above that will be children and creativity. In the top right-hand corner will be love and relationships. Directly across from the front door at the end on the other side of your house will be fame and reputation. Health is in the middle. And then likewise, if you come and turn left from your front door to your left is skills and knowledge, then family, then wealth. So wealth is like the back left-hand corner of your house. Hopefully that gives people a bit of a visual, because I know it's hard to explain just without being able to see it.
Yes. And again, we will link that in the show notes for people to.
Yeah, then people can just go get it.
Once you see it, it makes so much more sense.
Right. It's a visual tool for sure. So we use the Bagua to see what's going on in your life. So, if I go to someone's home, I'll give you a really quick story. So I went to a home of these older people. I would say they're mid 70s to early 80s, which is not my usual age group demographic. It just isn't. And he was on an oxygen tank, and the wife was saying, she had to move out of the bedroom because he was up all night and couldn't breathe and felt like he was drowning. And I'm like, well, may I see your room where you sleep? May I see where you sleep? And so because of his age, and his condition, he was sleeping quite a bit, even during the day too, because he felt like he was choking and couldn't breathe, all the things. So directly above his bed was an oil painting of Venice, the canals. And I'm like, okay, so where can a human being not breathe? Underwater. Where does a human being feel like they're drowning? Underwater. So we agreed to move. He said it's a super expensive piece. It reminded him of a great trip. I'm like, that's all great, but let's move it to a different area of your house where water is a beneficial element, and let's remove it from where you're sleeping, because whatever's above your head is going to have a lot of impact on you. And that would even relate back to conceiving, or the inability to conceive. Like, pay attention to what's above your bed. I prefer nothing. Honestly, people are always like, well, what can I put? I'm like, nothing. I would just prefer that you leave that space empty so that energy can flow around, and 2 weeks later, he was off the oxygen tank. When I went back to check on him. I mean, it really was.
You're like, duh.
I was kind of shocked. I was like, whoa, that's a good one. I have to remember, they don't all resolve themselves that quickly.
Right.
But people who tell me they feel like the weight of the world is on them, and I go into their bedroom and of course there's a map.
And or beams, right?
Beams are not good. Beams can contract the energy for sure. I do not like beams in the bedroom, and they, I can't say it's the reason why there's a divorce, but it can lead to separation because you're physically being separated by a beam, the two people that are sleeping on a bed.
Right.
Yeah. And it contracts the energy over your body, so the higher the ceiling, the higher up the beams are, the less effect they'll have on you, but they still will have an effect on you. So if you do have beams in your bedroom, at least paint them the same color of the ceiling. Don't have them a different color to where they stand out. And that will help minimize the effect that they'll have on you while you're sleeping.
Right. I know I was just again mentioning before we got on the phone that
Yeah.
we have been looking at homes, and I think the realtor last time I was walking through thought I was crazy because I kept mentioning different aspects of feng shui. And she's like, "Okay." But it's like I don't even have to really they were things that were not really fixable per se,
Right.
right?
Right.
And I just knowing what I know, which is very little, but enough to know that I don't want to put my family through situations of that's what we are living through. So another thing that came to mind when you were mentioning about the bedroom was a lot of people have family pictures. And from what I know, that's really not something that you should have there. Is that correct? Or
That is correct. I prefer no pictures except of you and your partner, whatever that means to you. And if you're single, then you don't want pictures of solitary people, like you want groups. So I would just not keep, I wouldn't want to go walk into your bedroom and see a whole bunch of pictures of just you everywhere, but yes, just you and your partner. And when this was explained to me, because I was one of those people, I had my whole family, the kid, everything. And when Karen came to my house, she goes, "You need to take all these out." I'm like, "Why? They're my family. I love to wake up and see them." She goes, "Do you want everyone watching you while you're intimate?" I'm like, oh, yeah. It had never crossed my mind.
right. You're like, okay, that was
Yeah.
easy.
Bye.
Pictures are away.
Pictures are away. So just you and your partner, happy pictures. Again, depending maybe on what gua your bedroom falls into, because, we all don't have perfectly feng shui homes where our bedroom falls into the love and relationships area.
Right.
My bedroom in our last house fell into helpful people and travel. And I love to travel, and so does my husband. So I had pictures of us that from trips that were wonderful that we want to go back to, that kind of thing. So anything that really brings a smile to your face. And that's just personal for the people who sleep in that room.
And what about the direction that you face when you're sleeping? I know that is something too. When we moved into our new house, sometimes you can't control that, right? Of like
Correct.
where things are
Right.
located and whatnot. What do people do? Well, first of all, where should they be facing? And is that really a thing? And or if it is and they can't fix, it's not in the direction, is there anything they can do to rectify that?
Mm-hmm. Question one. Yes, it's a thing. It's called command, and it really is important. Through multiple, consultations and years of doing this now, what you find and what you start to see are patterns, so what the patterns that I see when a room is not in command, and what it means to be in command is you want a solid wall behind you, if possible. You want a full solid wall behind you. You want a high headboard, and you don't want a beam, and if possible, not even a ceiling fan. A chandelier is fine, but not a ceiling fan, because ceiling fans cut the energy. So again, it's all about creating this sanctuary for you in your bedroom, which is so important. And especially if you're trying to conceive and, create life and all that, you want the area that you're in to be as auspicious as possible for you. So if that is the best situation, where you have a solid wall behind you and where you are able to see who's coming in from the door into your bedroom, but you're not in line with the door to your bedroom. So you don't want your feet in line with the door that comes into your bedroom. That is called the coffin position, unfortunately. And what we see as a pattern is that whoever is sleeping there and that door is open to the foot of the bed, there tend to be a lot of foot and ankle up to the knee issues. If somebody's having a lot of foot issues and you are sleeping directly in line with the door to your bedroom, see if you can switch it. So the second most beneficial position would be if there's a window. I prefer not, but like if you have a wall that has a window, that would be position number 2. What you really want is to be able to see who comes in, but not in line with your feet. If there's no way around it, and I've certainly had that dealing with, small apartments in New York places and stuff where, things are what they are, because I do virtual consultations all over the world, then you want to put something between the end of the bed and that door, so that the energy that comes in from the door doesn't hit your feet first. It hits something in between. So that could be a footboard, that's higher than your feet. It could be a bench, a little sofa, whatever it is that you have room for, you're going to intentionally place there, so that that is what gets hit with the energy coming into the room before it hits you and your feet. Does that make sense?
Totally makes sense.
Okay. Okay, good.
Yes, thank you.
Sure.
And also, I know for me with my little guys, that was a big thing for me with them too, especially when they were in a crib because they would roll around and sleep flip flop sleeping, and I'd
Right.
always go back in and turn them back around the right direction and whatnot. But you do see once they kind of get in alignment with where they're supposed to be, they are more peaceful. They
Hmm.
do calm down. The energy just is more calm. And so I put it out there as kind of a test for anybody who is listening, um, to switch those things around in your home. It's really easy to do. Those are not major things to do.
Right.
And just kind of analyze your space a little bit and see what you can do differently to make a difference. So now on to fertility.
Sure.
What if somebody is trying to conceive, what do you suggest that they do in their home?
So first of all, I would say the things that we just talked about, right? Get your bed in command, or at least as close to command as you can possibly get it. Get rid of a ceiling fan if you can. Get rid of beams, or at least paint them the same color as the ceiling, just to kind of minimize any effects that can be contrary to producing. Then I would say for the bedroom itself, and I actually took notes on this before we got on because I wanted to make sure that I had some really good ideas for you guys. So specifically for the bedroom, you don't want to vacuum under the bed while you're trying to conceive. You want the
Interesting.
energy to settle there. I know, I thought that was interesting too, because, so much of Feng Shui is clean, 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 declutter, make sure that things are not dirty or broken. But my teacher taught us that in this particular circumstance, you also don't want clutter. Like, I don't want anything under the bed.
Right.
So it's not your invitation to have all the things in storage. Like, get rid of the storage, clean it once, and then let it be while you're trying
Okay.
to conceive, and just don't vacuum. If it gets really dirty, maybe wipe down with a cloth or something, but you don't want that yang energy of vacuuming. You want to create a softer yin energy to invite life in. Yeah, you want the energy to settle in. You can add things to the creativity and children gua. So again, if you walk into your front door, immediately to your right is your travel and helpful people. Then like the center of the right hand side of your house would be your children and creativity gua. So you can add intentional items here to say, this is for the baby that is on its way. You're being super, super intentional about it. You want to
So what
focus
are
on,
some of those things? Like, is it a specific colored things? Is it like pictures of babies?
I
Any
think it can be
ideas?
anything that means that means something to you. For some people, it might be a silver baby rattle. So that area, the children and creativity gua itself, is actually a metal element area in your home. So anything with metal, anything white, anything round, are all good objects that can be placed there. White flowers. It's also the area that brings in creativity. So like for me, when I was trying to write the book, I mean, I'm not birthing children anymore. I'm 56, but I needed to birth this book. So I focused on the children and creativity gua too. And I always had fresh flowers. For me at that point in that house, it was the laundry room. So there's only so much you can do, but think about it. I had big white laundry machines. So I've got the color, they're metal, I kept all my party supplies in there. It's a very creative, fun area. So you can bring in a silver bell, anything that seems happy. The only things that you shouldn't put in that area are candles, because fire melts metal in Feng Shui through the elements. Anything pointy, because again, that's just sharp and you don't want to invite sharp things in. So I actually had all my candles stored in my laundry room. And as soon as I learned all this, I took them all out, moved them around, moved all the party supplies in there, and boom, 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 things just started unblocking and I was able to write. Anything that's blocked is not good for you in that area either. So if you can physically go in and you can't open the door all the way because you have stuff behind it, if you can't open a window, if you have piles of things, declutter, clean it out, unblock anything, because that will unblock the energy channels for children and creativity, whatever that means to you.
Awesome. I mean, I feel like so many people who come to see me are like, I've checked all the boxes, I've done all the things, right? What else can I possibly do? And unfortunately, you're at a place of feeling so desperate and
Yep.
you will do anything. And I don't feel like this is a situation of desperation, so to speak, in moving to feng shui and just looking through your home and what you're doing and analyzing the situations. It's more of just kind of a lifting up of the energy
Absolutely.
and moving forward in a more beautiful way to say, I'm setting an intention here rather than like, oh my God, I gotta put this creativity and child area all together because I'm hoping to have a baby. Like, come to it with a more loving intention that you're
Hmm.
just doing something for yourself to grow, right? Rather than, this one more thing on the to-do list in order to conceive. Because again, that energy comes into it as well, right? Of like, I
Right.
have to do this. No, we don't have to do anything.
I
But
get to.
yes, I get to. And it's a beautiful thing to be able to do. And just curiosity, right? Be open
Right.
and curious to how is this going to shift any energy? What do I see differently? Do I feel differently now that this laundry room is a little more uplifted, so to speak, right? And most often you do if you can really tune into yourself and pay attention to what's happening around you.
Well, and you know, this is what I tell all my friends, even the ones who are like, people will say, "Oh, I don't believe in feng shui." And I'm like, "It's not a belief system,
Right.
Oh, it's witchcraft." No, it's not. It's like it's a religion. No, it's not religious. It's not anti-religious. It is literally working with the energy that is already all around us. So
Right.
why not work with it instead of against it? I'm like, I don't get it. But I'm also,
Agree.
I also have studied it and understand, but
Right.
that is what I just tell people. I'm like, sadly, feng shui doesn't care if you believe in it or not. It's there. So you might as well work with it.
And all oftentimes when you get into it a little bit, you realize, oh my gosh, it's common sense,
Right.
right?
Oh, it's literally 4,000 years of common sense.
Yes. And so it's like close the bathroom doors and shut all the lids in the toilets and whatever so the water things don't flow down. It's like, oh, of course, right?
Right.
That makes
Right.
total sense. So the little things that you might think don't make a difference, try them and see if they do make a difference. I guess is all I can say.
Well, and they'll also make a difference. A lot of people come to me. One more tip I wanted to give you guys for trying to conceive before
Oh,
I tell you
yes,
what I'm going to
please.
say. Don't do any major renovations in the house while you're trying. Again, we're trying to create that yin, think of your uterus. It's a dark, quiet environment. So don't do any major renovations and start ripping out walls and all that while you're trying to conceive. Try and keep things calm and quiet, and then afterwards, whatever. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that one as well.
That's a great
And
one because I think a lot of people do that with the intention of their babies coming, right? So we need to put the extra room on or change the office to a room now, and we're going to blow out this wall or whatever we're going to do. So that's a great tip. Thank you for
I would
sharing that.
say, yes, I would say do that once the conception has happened and once the pregnancy feels like it's good and it's going to go all the way through and all of that, then you can start doing those things to get ready to nest at the end. But just while you're in the process of trying to conceive, try and stay in a calmer state. But the other thing I was going to mention is it also, feng shui will work for everybody in the household. I have so many people, and sometimes it's the men that reach out to me, surprisingly, but most of the time it will be the woman in the household. And she's like, well, I believe in it, but my husband does not, as you and I talked a little bit about earlier. And I'm like, it's okay, because what you do will affect everyone in the house. So even if nobody else is paying attention to you, the work that you are doing intentionally on your home, in your office, wherever it is, whatever space you're doing it, will have a positive impact on everybody that's under that roof, including the animals, so it doesn't hurt to
For
do
sure.
it.
I can't agree with you more. My little guys are now 3, 4, and 6,
Oh.
and even they know, like, you can't do that. It's bad feng shui. Like, they'll make, off the cuff comments to somebody or whatever, or to each other even. Like, you need to close the toilet because it's bad feng shui, to
Don't
remind
you love that
themselves or
though?
whatever. Yes, and I just always go back to they are such sponges and it's
Mm-hmm.
normal for them, right? These
Right.
conversations of crystals and Jesus and God and all of the
All
things
of it.
is all talked about in our house. So you don't have to be one or the other. Again, I will kind of reiterate that. And that's how we're raising this new collective of energy little souls to know and be educated in different modalities than some of us were of like, this is what you do. And there's no
Right.
No other
Totally.
options around
Right.
that.
Right.
So I think to your point of the family just kind of gets on board and has the benefits of it, I will 1,000% agree on that.
And I'd like to share a quick story of how children really do understand energy, even if they don't have the language to express it to us. Because, up until a few years ago, I didn't have this language
Yes.
either. I had to learn almost an entirely new language to be able to do this job. I was working with a mom who called me because her 3-year-old would run crying into their room every single night, refused to sleep in his room. She's like, this room looks like a magazine. And it did. It was gorgeous. She was calling it the bear den. And so he had this cute little metal bed. And then it was painted all black, like it was like in a cave. And then it had white birch trees, a mural of white birch trees. It really did. It was gorgeous. But the trees had no leaves on them. So that was at night. And then she'd taken the cute stuffed animal heads and had them, I don't know if she bought them mounted or had them mounted so that they looked like trophies, and she's
Okay.
like, how cute is this? I'm like, it's very cute, but and then the really interesting thing that she said to me was, he's asked me to paint the door green. And I go, which side of the door? The inside of the door. So the one that he could see. And I said, okay, let me think about this. And I'm like, well, here's what I think. And here's what I feel based on what I know. Everything's dead in here. You're in a metal bed, which isn't, I would prefer wood beds, especially for children, because metal is not very protective. There are slats usually, so you don't feel encased and like in a little cocoon. So for children, if possible, wood beds are better, even for adults, preferably. I never put anyone in a metal bed anymore.
Yeah.
The room is black. It's the middle of the night all the time.
I know
The
when you were
birch,
just explaining it, I'm like, I
yeah.
would be scared in the night.
And it was gorgeous, I mean, it was done by a great designer. It was before she knew me. So, and then the heads, and I'm like, so everything is literally dead. Like he's basically asking you something green, something that's alive. So then she started crying. She's like, I feel so bad, and I'm like, no, you didn't know, you didn't know. We can't do better until we know better. So
Right.
she switched it around. They painted leaves, they did all the things, and he went right to his bed and he doesn't, jump into their room anymore. So pay attention to what you put in your kids' rooms too, because even though it might be Pinterest worthy, it might not be energetically a good fit. And I think people forget that. Designers forget that,
And it's possible to do both.
Oh, sure. No, that's how I work. I want it
Yes.
gorgeous, but energetically aligned.
Right. What
Yeah, I mean, I'm an interior designer.
music
It's
to
not
my
going to be
ears.
ugly.
Yes. Yes, yes. So how can people find you and learn more about all the things that you do in your book and everything?
Oh, thank you. Well, the other thing I did, which might be a great place for some people to start if they're not ready for a one-on-one, is I created a card deck.
Oh, I
So,
love card decks.
so this time I did not argue when Spirit came to me and said, you're going to write a card deck, you're going to create this card deck, instead of saying no and fighting it like I fought learning Feng Shui in the book and all that. I just said, all right, just tell me what I need to write down, channel through me. And in 3 weeks, I had it done. And then I worked with a person in Sedona who I met, a beautiful artist when we were living out there, and she did all the graphics for me. So this has 77 cards, and it touches every single corner of your home, even your garden, your outdoor space, and your garage. So by the time you do it end to end, you've touched everything in your house. So it's kind of like do it yourself Feng Shui.
So you choose a card and the card tells you what to do, or
Yes,
tell us about
yes.
that.
So
Okay.
you can, so it's got a Bagua map in it too. So it
Okay.
has a card with a Bagua map. So you're
Fun.
guided to it. The back of it will tell you how to use it. And when you were talking about the boys saying, oh, it's bad Feng Shui, put the toilet lid down. What one of my clients told me is she had the card deck and she said her daughter was outside sweeping like by a shed. And she goes, what are you doing? Why are you sweeping the dirt? She goes, oh, the card I pulled today said to sweep outside of the garage. And since we don't have a garage, we have a shed. I'm sweeping the dirt. Like, oh my God. And she was wiping down the shed door because it was the garage door for her,
Cute. Yeah.
So she's like, the kids pull a card whenever they want or whenever they have time. Sometimes on a weekend, if there's some downtime, everybody in the family will pull one. And then it's sort of a race to see who can finish their task first. The way I tell people to do it is take it at your pace. It doesn't mean you have to pull a card every day. Some things will take 5 minutes. Some things might take a couple of hours. Some things might take a day. So pull it, in any order you want, whatever's calling to you that day. If you pull one that just seems insurmountable that day, stick it back in. find a different one, that fits with your time frame and the mood that you're in. But you will go through your kitchen, your bathrooms, your bedrooms, all of it, every single little area of your home. And that seems to be a really, really good thing. People love that deck. So that's available on Amazon, as is my book, and on my website. So, and then they're in a lot of local stores here in Tampa, and now going to St. Louis. Actually, I just had somebody call me from St. Louis that wants to stock them.
Amazing. I love card decks. It's such an easy lift of what it is that you're trying to move towards.
I even talk about clothing. I even talk about, because you can feng shui what you're wearing.
I love that too.
Again, with wanting to conceive, white is a great color to wear because you're welcoming in something new. It's always, white always makes you think of something brand new, right? So
yes.
So that's a good one to
And what's your card deck called?
It's called What Should I Feng Shui Today?
Oh, so fun.
Isn't that cute? Yes. And then my book is called I Just Can't Make This Shit Up, because I can't.
I love that.
There was no other title for it.
I love it.
I'm super active on my Instagram, so most people find me there. And then my website.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time and all the great nuggets of information. And we can't wait to learn more as we go along.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. So much fun talking with you.
Yeah, you too. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Creation Innovation Podcast. Make sure to follow us on Spotify for free episodes and subscribe to the Creation Innovation Podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you choose to get your podcast. Don't forget to rate and review the podcast wherever you're listening for a chance to receive a special gift. Yes, we actually do send out gifts. It's my favorite thing to do. So visit us at elizabethking.com/creation innovation for more information on how to enter. Every review counts, and we are so grateful. You can follow me at the official Elizabeth King on Instagram or TikTok. Until next time.